Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this podcast. Our name is Automated Advantage. We aim to talk to business leaders about their experience in business, about their perspectives on different things, and some nuggets sometimes for business owners or people wanting to start a business. This week, we're going to have Tish from Candor Consulting, who's got some very energetic and enthusiastic approaches on a lot of different things and some great advice. So I hope everybody enjoys this and look forward to you listening. Hi, Tish.
Hello
Thanks
there.
for joining
Oh,
us today. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your company?
hello there, Greg. And yes, I'd love to. My name is Tish Valero. I'm the CEO and founder of Candor Consulting. I'm a management consulting business that focus on early stage growth companies and their leaders. I have been in business since 2000. I have worked with many different amazing people in all different industries. And my goal is always the same, to get you to achieve more than you thought you could with the people around you to make your business a success.
That's incredible. Thank you. And it's an interesting story too, because a lot of people that I've been speaking to have worked in an industry and then figured out a way to do it better or found a niche. It sounds like you, and I read on your profile as well, went to college and it sounded like you said, I'm going to start my own business. And so you started out early. Maybe just explain why this particular area, what was the impetus behind that?
So I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I come from a very straight lace. My mom and dad stayed in jobs forever. And when I graduated college, I had a beagle. And I said, oh, from having the opportunity to be with my pet all day long, where do I leave them when I get a job? So I decided, because that's how I do things, I look for a problem and I go solve it. I started the first dog daycare and boarding called Doggy World Daycare. And I did that with another young lady who had a similar interest, but her thought was, let's do a bakery. And I said, no, let's have the bakery in the daycare. And so for about 7 years, we ran Doggy Roll Daycare from two females who were not entrepreneurs, started a business with zero money in our checking account, but we knew what we wanted. We knew we wanted to focus on a friendly place for dogs to enjoy themselves with other dogs. And that's what we did.
Oh, that's a very interesting backstory there. So then, obviously, having done that and been successful at it, you figured there was a way to help others to do the same thing, or how did it come about to do what you're doing
Yeah,
now?
well, it was interesting. So we ran the business, and I have to say, a dog daycare is a lot of fun, but it's labor intensive. So, I mean, I drove the school bus. We had two big school buses. I drove this tremendous Stroman bread truck that we transformed into a school bus for dogs, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then 6 o'clock at night. So we did everything. And though I loved creating and starting, I realized I also probably wasn't a fit for that business anymore. I loved getting dressed up. I loved being out and about. And my business partner says, you don't need heels when you're picking up poopy in the backyard. So that's when I started to realize maybe this business isn't exactly for me. So she continued on, and I decided I have to get a job. One, I had school loans because I put myself through college. And two, I mean, I had a great education. I understood business. I needed to figure out what to do. And I started out really in a very difficult time. Entrepreneurs were not well sought out. Like, I had a resume that had Doggy World Daycare, and people met me and say, what's wrong with you? Like, why did you go from college to a dog business? Today, if someone saw me as an entrepreneur, I'd be, escalated all the way to the top. So it was a little tricky. And so I worked in a company as a recruiter, which is really on getting to know dynamics of right people, right seats. And I think that started my mind working on where my strengths were in that kind of new corporate world. And I probably did that for a couple of years. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to go on my own, but not recruiting. I'm going to go on my own to have really the need to figure out where it happens when you have the right people in the right seats. Because what I was seeing is not always the right things were happening. And I launched Candor in 2000. So a lot of it was out of circumstances and a need for something. And that's what drove me to pick it up and just start it.
Now, again, interesting as far as where you see certain things and know what you want to do. And I love the idea of you coming out and saying, where do I take, the dogs need to be taken care of, and I don't want to get a job and things like that. It's interesting, as we've learned, that different things trigger different people to do
Hmm.
what they do, and for different reasons. And so interesting. So as far as and I looked at your customer base, I looked at the logos you have. It's very interesting to me that you have a wide range. So you've got, some, and I use it to, not to be negative, no name brands, and then I saw IBM and others on there. So how do you attract customers? What's your process? What's your story to them, and why would they pick you over somebody else?
It's a good point because you don't even know the answer when it happens until you're actually in there working with them. I would say most of my business in the last 25 years was through a referral. So when I'm working with a no name to a startup to a larger organization to one that's extremely very successful and just needs tweaking, I treat them all the same. And I come in, I have a plan, I have experience working probably in the area that they need help, and I do my best. And from that, I get, referred, and that's what happens. People will work with you in maybe a small company and then go to a large company. And when they're in the larger company, they say, oh, I remember that person was very helpful. So I do think a lot of my diversity comes from the people that I've worked with, allowing me to then follow them wherever they go. And sometimes they go to large companies and other times they stay in more of the venture back early stage growth company. And that's how I had, I think, most of the diverse sort of broadness. What do I prefer? I do think being in around the stage where you actually can have impact is much more exciting. And in the larger corporations, I'm not always at the very, very, very top. So I'm not working with IBM CEO. I'm probably down 18 rungs to the president of some local area. And so I prefer, if I can, to be in a smaller business that has the decision makers as my point of contact. Because then I think we're going to see change or progress a lot sooner than if I'm in a larger bureaucratic, many layers business.
Yeah. No, and again, so yeah, that's what I imagined as far as being at, divisions of a company and things like that, and taking that conversation to a founder, CEO, business startup. I got to believe that you're providing advice and guidance to people, and you've been invited in. But how often? I'm assuming that not every thing that you bring to the table or whatever it is always welcomed. And I'm sure there's times when they say, wow, that's an amazing idea, and then there's other times that it's like you may be fighting against or paddling up against the stream. So maybe just talk to us a little bit about
Hmm.
how some of those interactions. And again, I said this before we started the recording. I really appreciate it on your website as far as the communication, conversations, and the I'll put my words to it, authenticity
Hmm.
feeling that I got out of it. So maybe take those things and just explain to us days and good interactions and some not so good interactions, and how you manage through that.
So most of my clients aren't happy to see me because we have a problem, right? So I would start off by saying no one ever says that's a fabulous idea because it's some sort of change or asking someone to think about something differently. But what I do make them feel comfortable with is that I'm going to be there with them. So I do think most times when people struggle with something new and uncertain or a big decision that could maybe not go 100% the way we think, knowing you have a support group or someone to be there with you. So that's probably a big difference between me and maybe some other advisors. I actually stay in the business and become part of the infrastructure if we're making a major shift or change. There are times when people aren't ready for me. I never think it's a dislike. I think everyone could like me, though I am honest and very candid. Sometimes they're not ready for the change. And I know that. I can sense that. So I will come in and give everyone the opportunity to tell me what's happening. And then I'll tell them what I see is happening. And we don't always have the same story. And then I agree with them. This is very hard. Being a leader, a founder, having to think for everybody, that's why a lot of people aren't CEOs and founders. Not everybody's ready for that responsibility and the stress that comes with it. So I start off by agreeing with them, this is hard and I'm about to make it a little bit harder. But you have a partner to go through it. And most times we get there. But there have been some where they weren't ready or they didn't like what I said. And we amicably agreed that maybe we're not the right fit for each other, and that's fine. Or maybe you need some more time to think about what you want to do. In both or any of those cases, they probably are a big part of the problem and they're not ready to face that. Because solving other problems are easier than when you're part of the problem. And most often that's where the biggest challenge comes from is really getting that person comfortable that you do play a part in this.
Yeah, and that's a really good point there too, because names not to be named and things, but have been in places where I've tried to help as part of an organization coming into change a team or change, not be necessarily to the extent that you're doing. And what I've discovered is it's the word is the receptiveness, if that is a word, of the person that wants to do the change. In addition to the fact that I think, for example, let's just say you're a $10 million business. Somebody says, well, I want to be a $50 million business. It's like, so it's a great idea, but there's a lot of things that need to happen. And like you said, you can position things to be put in place to change, but unless that person's will, I'm assuming in your case too, if they're willing to take the change and they're willing to implement what you've said with your experience and your background, you can tell that really early on, and you're not going to have a massive amount of success.
Well, the first question I'll ask them if they came to me with that is, are you ready for things to change for you? They don't always have to, but the odds are someone that's a 10 million going to 50 million, they may not be the right leader of that group. They have to factor that in if they're a founder or the first level of leadership there. I'm not saying I come in to make those changes, but as long as someone's willing to entertain that as an option, I know we can work together because I don't know what's going to happen, but the odds are what we're doing today, we're not going to be doing tomorrow, which means the talent we have today may not be enough for tomorrow. It's just really putting the facts on the table. And when someone is at least open-minded to that, then I know we have a shot and they probably will make it to be that person. But if they're anti that, there's a good chance they already know the answer.
I think that's again another very fair point. So you said a little bit earlier about your referral, and I know I should know this, but are you operating by yourself, or do you have a team that supports you? What's your company structure?
I have a boutique. So I have evolved Candor in these 25 years where I had a bunch of me and we all went out and delivered together or sold business. And then I decided I wanted to be the person that people work with. So I have a very small team. I have myself, and I have three people that support me from a marketing and branding. I have one that supports me on my programs that I put out and all the content. And then I have one that kind of does all the back end administration. And so when someone is interested in Candor, they get me. If I need to add folks because there are things that I'm not the best at, so if it's something that I don't do well, I do have a talented group of people that I can bring in on a project basis. But for the most part, when someone hires Candor, they're getting me, like
Yeah,
it or
that's, I
not.
mean, but I'm sure it's the like it component of that. So that obviously then, your day is busy. So maybe take us through how does it, if there is such a thing as a typical day, what does a typical day look like for you?
It's a lot of conversations. It's interesting. I am always involved in a conversation of some sort, which is why on weekends, if I didn't have to talk, I probably wouldn't, because it is a big part of what I do. But I do love working with people. It's interesting. I don't call myself a people person, but I love problem solving. And when people come to me with problems, I immediately want to fix them. So I would say my morning starts off early. I'm a 5:30 a.m. girl. I go to yoga or a workout in the morning till about 8:30, and then my day begins. And it can go into very late in the hours because I have international companies or West Coast companies, and with that, my time zone will vary to them. I work on weekends if I have some Israeli companies that, their Monday is a Sunday, so I will take calls and have meetings on Sunday. But I'm trying to balance that. I've been around a long time, Greg, and for me, I have to balance a little bit. Otherwise, I work over much, right? So I'm going to be one of those excessive people. And so I have kind of learned how to put pockets into how I break my day up. So COVID was one way because I had it to block lunch because I was Zooming all day and didn't have a lunchtime. And so then I'd get hangry and I'm not the best person to work with. So, I've learned to block time to give myself a breather and digest information or just get up and walk around. But I like being busy. I think if I sit still, and my husband can attest to this, I have to be busy, even on vacation. So I don't mind a busy day. And I do my thinking, believe it or not, in the late hours or in the drives, or actually when I'm doing my own personal stuff. That's when I can think clearly about what I want to offer or talk about. And that just seems to work for me. That's how I do it.
And I like that aspect of you doing the workout in the morning. To be quite frank, for me doing this now, and I'm trying to find this balance between physical activities and things like that. I do triathlon work and I run and I ride, which is where a lot of my thinking time happens as I'm doing my bike ride and things like that. But I'm really trying to now just make it a habit of this is blocked off time. This is my time because I think, and you can attest to this too, maybe and validate is it helps your mental capacity as well and just getting out there
Absolutely.
and yeah.
I never made time for myself. I have two kids. They're in their mid 20s. I had a full-time job, always with the kids, and I traveled a lot being a consultant. Pre-COVID, virtual and video was not even an option. People didn't think that that could ever work. So I traveled a lot. And until COVID hit, when I started to actually work from home and have the same capacity of being impactful, I started to figure out a different balance. And recently moving to Miami, which is a little under 2 years, everybody here takes care of themselves. They're very fit. They're outside. The weather's beautiful. So I started to say, I want to take care of myself. And so I learned that I'm a morning workout person, not an evening workout person. And, I would have thought I was an evening person because I like to get up early and get right to business, but I talked myself out of working out. So I'd never do it. So then I switched and I became the morning workout, and now I'm religious. That's how I begin my day. And it makes me sharper, and it makes me also excited to get into the workday because I've done, checked the box, did my workout, I sweated the way I had to sweat, everything's good, right? Otherwise, I had this thing gleaming over me. Am I going to do this at 6 o'clock? Should I do it at 7? Then I have to walk the dog. And before you know it, I talk myself out of working out.
100%. I'm in exactly that same boat. For me, I say there's a meter that just it goes down as the day goes down. My enthusiasm workout meter just goes down. So yeah, I'm trying to balance that, and I think that's good advice for everybody. Make sure that you make time for yourself because, as we all know, as entrepreneurs, as business people, you can get sucked into this thing, and it
And I
you know you
did for years. I never got to work out. I never had time for me. And I used to play tennis, but I only could do it, recreationally on the weekends because all the clubs were during the weekdays. And so there are things I gave up. And I'm not sorry I did, but now, you have to make a conscious effort what's important and balance it. Because you know what? In the end, it does all work out. It usually does, and you shouldn't fret over it. So if you're sitting there wondering, can I add a workout 3 times a week? The answer is yes, because it's going to make you better at what you do if you do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And that's again fair comment as well. And so I think, from advice perspective, people again, if you're watching this, make time for yourself. It's really important. So kind of taking it to and interestingly enough, you said something about traveling and things like that. I did the same thing. I was a road warrior consultant, and talk about not wanting to do certain things. Mine was, oh, my family wants to go on vacation, and then they want to, hey, we should fly somewhere. Oh my God, the last thing I want to do is go to an airport. So having COVID come around and allow us to operate in a different
Not
way, I
fly
think it
as
was
much.
one of the massive benefits of that for sure. So kind of talking through your journey and where you're at. You mentioned your customer base. You mentioned the diversity of who you have. What's your growth strategy? What's your goal? Are you happy where you're at? Do you wish you could make it bigger? And I mean, what does the next X amount of years look like for you?
Well, I do love what I do. So I don't think I'm in retirement stage, though in Miami, I'm probably one of two people that still work because somehow everyone seems to have all this free time. But I am thinking through what I offer to people. And right now it's been very corporate driven. and in businesses. I'm going to expand that, and I started to think about our young professionals, those in their 25 to like 40, where they're out of college a year or two, and they actually had a job where they lived through something and either it worked or didn't, and they're in relationships and they're not quite sure about, is it the right one? I don't feel today that we have a lot of role models that could give advice from experience. I think a lot of people get on social media and give advice. So I think you can find anything anywhere as quickly as you'd like. And we have AI now that you could, jot a question into it and out comes pages of great knowledge. But I don't know if it's all accurate, and I don't know if it's all on target. So one of the things I'm starting to think about more as a volunteer of my time, not to stop what I'm doing, but just add to, is to really create a launch program for young professionals to really know themselves so that they can make better decisions that are good for them. Because right now, I feel like people make decisions that they're watching what everyone else is doing. And having two kids in that sort of arena is how I parent them, and it seems to be helpful. I'd like to see if I can kind of get that out there a little bit and use my 25 years of experience, both being an entrepreneur and an advisor in all different companies and different levels of people in companies. How can I bring that to someone? And that's kind of my next sort of launching pad. Besides, I'm also in a third book now. It's on building your first team. So as a young founder or early executive, you have to build people around you to make the business hum. And that there is a method to it. And I'm not sure they teach us that in any acceleration program or any MBA program, because it's every company is going to look different. But there is a roadmap that I have found how to pick out the right persons for you as that leader to really make sure that they're complementing you and driving the business forward. So I've been focused on that this past year, and I'll launch it in January. So those are my two little areas. Because me, I'm always starting something. It wouldn't be me if I wasn't starting something new.
No, and that's exciting too, because it's interesting you said that. Through happenstance, I've met up with a young lady who is helping me with some stuff in my business, but is also trying to launch her own business. And I'm on the other end of the scale, and she's at the way different end
Beginning.
of the scale. And it's, for me, it's lots of different things. It's the refreshing nature of how they think. Nothing. I feel like that they have this fearless approach to it. I mean, for me, I grew up in that age of, with that whole rich dad, poor dad thing. My dad was a CPA. So what did I do? I went to become a CPA because I didn't know anything different. And I had to get a job and I had to do all of these things. And then by the time you get settled, you've got a wife and a mortgage and a whatever it is. I'm just sensing this new trend of the less, like, burdens that these folks have, and they're willing to go out and try something. So I think that there's a lot to be said for helping people like that. I think there's a real market for that, or at least
Just to
an
steer
audience
them
for
in the
that.
right direction, right? I mean, it's not even that I know better. It's sometimes, and I wish I had it. Like my background was my parents cried when I said I'm starting my own business. Like, what's wrong with you? Why? Why can't you just get a job? And that was many years ago, right? So I'm in a, definitely the older age bracket. But I broke every rule. I did not follow anything that my parents would suggest. And today I do think our youth is a lot more open-minded. So I think that's a plus. But old school boundaries and some moral values are still really, really important. And I'm not sure those have filtered in yet. And I want to have that combo. I want the open-mindedness, but I also want the morals and values to be less me focused and more we focused, because I do think everyone will be much better for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a guy that's part of our program that he uses these words that we're in a trust recession, and I don't like it, but I believe in that too. I think that there's this, to your point earlier, is, you know, in a weird way, you type something into Chat GPT, I think people just believe that it's gospel, right? Like, and I think that there's this aspect of AI. Everybody's talking about, oh my gosh, it's going to replace people. It's not. It it's still, somebody's got to check the homework, and I think this is where experience comes in and say, look, that's a great answer, but it's getting you 60% of the way there. Here's other things that you need to consider. So
Yeah, especially in our field where you're giving advice. And I have a perfect example. I have a young lady I'm working with, and her tone and her delivery on her messages are not always the best to the audience to which she's working with. But she used ChatGPT and said, "Hey, should I say it like this?" And ChatGPT says, "Yeah, that sounds fine." But they didn't get her tone. It was words. I said, so words on paper are very different in delivery. I said, so I don't think the words are wrong, but your delivery, your tone, and your eye rolling certainly are not right. And I don't think ChatGPT would suggest that. So there is an element of AI that will definitely save time and hopefully give people more information for those that would stop after just hearing it once. So I do like that. But if we honestly believe not training people to do things, what's going to happen when AI goes down for the day? Nobody will know how to do something. Then what? So I do think we have to just balance out how much of it replaces the manual work. Make sure they know how to do the manual work as well, because there are days that, as you know, your cell phone doesn't work, your computer decided not to go on. These things happen. What happens when you have no one who knows how to do that thing that AI was able to do? That's the part we just have to balance. And we don't want
Yeah.
to forget humans are human because they have feelings. I don't know how to replace that yet. And I don't know if I
Mm.
want to replace that.
And I don't think we will. And yeah, I mean, interesting you said that as well. I had a slightly similar situation with somebody was asking for a sizable amount of money from a customer for a deal, and they had put it in like a sloppy kind of Word document. I was like, you know what? If you took 10 minutes and just prettied that up and put it in Gamma and made it look like you've put some effort into it, that's the experience thing. And again, you know, in today's day and age, it's this fast, get it out, get it out, get it out. It's like
Immediate
you're asking,
satisfaction.
yeah, and you're asking for somebody to spend money with you, and all you did was put it on a Word document that looks sloppy. It's just, I think there's again, I'm validating everything you're saying because I'm in violent agreement with this learning what the little nuances of those types of things and what a big value that it brings.
And that is a learning because that person will shortcut things for you because that's what that tells me. If
Mm-hmm.
they did it for themselves, they're going to certainly do it for you. So they may want to do their automated, Word doc scope, but that means any chance that they can shortchange, that's the advice or that's the way that your project's going to go with them. And is that what you want? That's how people have
Yeah.
to start to revisit what do I really need? And just don't go with what everyone else is using. I'm not saying what everyone else is using isn't good, but is it right for you? And I don't think we're all one size and one shape, that everything someone else is doing is going to work the same way. And I think we have to get a little bit better at having the patience to stop a minute and think it through.
Yeah, agreed. And not to hop on the AI thing, but I just wanted to get a perspective on it as and not to put you on the spot, but from your business day-to-day perspective, have you had any adds and value that you've brought AI tools into your day-to-day activities or
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was able to take some of my PowerPoint presentations or my programs and really fine tune some of the exercises because I could, put in what I was trying to accomplish, and I got like a plethora of information of how to do a better exercise or word it differently, but I still had to review it. And I also had to create the actual exercise concept. What AI was able to do was help me kind of put it all together so that I could then look at it as a final product and then tweak it. So yeah, we've used it for content. We've used it to market myself, right? If I'm putting a marketing piece out, we can automate it and it can respond to emails like they're from me. So I don't have to read everyone or miss them. But that doesn't mean it replaced me, like, reviewing it to make sure it's the right message of me. And so, yeah, I mean, I have seen a lot of value in utilizing AI, but I've never had it replace me or one of my team members from actually managing that process and overviewing it and blessing it ourselves.
yeah, no, and I 100% agree with that. So as we start drawing near and the entry to the conversation before we started recording, I mentioned to you one of my objectives is to get this out to people. So, you know, you've shared a lot of great information and we've sort of touched on topics about starting businesses and advice, but what's if somebody said, okay, give me I'm about to start a business. What are the two, three things I cannot not do?
Okay. One is be sure you know it's going to be difficult because it is hard. That's why not everybody is a founder or creates things or wants to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of the weight is going to be on you. So get ready to live with uncertainty and change. So that's one. Two, it's not what you say, but how you say it. No matter what you're going to do as that leader or that founder, the way you say something and the delivery is going to be way more important sometimes than the message. And the third is, you can ask people to give you guidance and advice, but at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and live with the consequences and the choices you make. Make sure that it's comfortable for you to make that decision because people are very quick to give you their view, but they're not living your life or living that decision you're making. And I would say make sure you can look yourself in the mirror because believe it or not, watching yourself and saying the things you want to say to yourself, you actually start to see it in a different light. So those are my
That
three words of wisdom.
No, those are incredible words of wisdom. But I truly thank you for this. This was enlightening, and I love your enthusiasm. I love your energy, and I can see how your business has been successful. So I look forward to sharing this with everybody. And thank you again for taking the time to do this.
Greg, it's been a pleasure. And if anyone in your audience ever needs to reach me, I'm easy to find. You just go to my website, which is candor-consulting.com. Always welcome anyone just to want to chalk something through. I don't need to be working with someone to be helpful. I believe that if you're nice to someone and you help them, someone will be nice back to you and help you. And that's really how you have to really think about life.
You and I are 100% aligned on that. And thank you once again.
Great. Have a great